Hi everyone, and welcome to the Resident Rulebreakers. I'm Kayla.
Hi, Brittany.
And on today's podcast, Camille is not going to be here. Brittany is stepping in her shoes for today. And Brittany is a co-admin for the Resident Fox fans. We're recording this before this episode goes to air on Fox. So for those of you who actually got to watch it on Hulu, hi. If not, well, we know that you've seen it at least. Since
hopefully
because full of spoilers. This episode was actually written by Peter Elkhoff and Marqui Jackson. You probably, if you listen to the podcast long enough, you know Marqui was one of our guests at one point. So okay. Directed by Rob Quinn. So because they do 2 and 2, every director gets 2 episodes now. And so the first, like, the episode title is called Mina's Kangaroo Court. And I think the podcast, one of the first podcasts when we started discussing episode titles was, what was a kangaroo court? A lot of people probably asked what in the world she's talking about. But It's she's pretty much being your own judge, jury, and executioner at this point. So, and her victims Barrett Cain.
I agree with her on this one, though.
Yeah, he needs to go down.
This one's okay. I 100% agreed with her on this one. Cain, inexcusable. His actions are enough. It's time to take him down.
The patient from the first episode in the premiere returns with complications. He got COVID. Shocker, not really.
A lot of foreshadowing for that. I was no surprise.
But he got COVID, and then he's having all these other complications from the surgery, and and Cain's responsible, obviously. And Mina's like, I just want to tell him, he's not a good person, he's not a good doctor, and somehow AJ's wanting to defend him because he's Black. There was a brotherhood there.
Yeah.
I see it. I get, I guess, why he's doing it, but Mina's got a different take because she's Nigerian.
Yeah.
I love the fact that they brought up the race thing because it really hits home, because a lot of the Resident brings up racial issues in medicine quite frequently. And
I think that Cain is doing an awful thing for for his race by he's not doing it for the right reasons. I mean, of course it's important, to have that diversity, but he's doing it just so he doesn't get in trouble. He has no I don't feel like he actually feels that way. I feel like he's like, you know what, I can play into AJ's, into his feelings for this. And I think that Cain is, I think that was really irresponsible on his part.
But Mina goes against AJ and goes in and tells him, and it ends up being a lawsuit. So,
yeah.
And the thing is, Mina and AJ are together now. So
I know.
And so it's not only their working relationship, it's their personal relationship that's also strained because of this. And I think they decided to take a little bit of a break, not from the relationship, but from the sexual aspect of their relationship.
Yeah.
So.
They're both so non-emotional about it. You know what I mean? It was just like 2 days, 3 days. And it was just like,
they're like bargaining. Yeah. Because ever since Conrad and Nick's wedding, they've had sex pretty much every night. And then they're like,
every single night.
They're like, AJ said my back hurts at one point.
I don't know how as doctor shifts they're getting away with that, because I know that's a lot of hours to be working.
It's a lot of hours in there. Speaking of Conrad and Nick's wedding, obviously this is the first full episode of them being a married couple. Conrad admits married sex is better.
yeah, he does say that.
But Nick can't get used to the husband term. So in the ER, they say, "Oh, your husband's geeking out over this Congress lady," and she's like, "I can't get used to that one." So,
it's a hard change. It is.
I wouldn't know, but you do.
Yeah. I am married.
Yeah, but their honeymoon was in Key West, Florida, so they didn't leave the U.S. But
still Florida. I was
Florida.
when they said honeymoon, I was like, ooh. But then I kept forgetting that it's post-COVID in that like reality. In our reality, Florida is a no-no.
The Conrad and Nick storyline that really is probably going to push the rest of the season is the last scene of this episode.
Oh, yes. And I saw it coming.
Yeah, it's in the promo. So there's
yeah.
Yeah, it's in the promo.
I mean, in the long scheme of things, I knew it would happen.
And a lot of people, when the wedding photos went out, they went, "Is she pregnant?" Well, she is.
Yeah.
Pregnant. And but I had a prediction early on that it wouldn't be an easy pregnancy. She's already had a miscarriage.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why I knew that it wouldn't be long into the show that they would have a baby, just because I know that they had already had the miscarriage, and that wasn't a what was that? That was season 1, right?
Season 2. They mentioned
2. Okay.
Yeah. They mentioned the miscarriage in season 2. Yeah.
It was beginning of season 2, I think, because I always get a little bit confused right in that area. I'm one of those people who watches the show and then kind of half forgets when it happened in the show. But they were excited about the baby. They made it seem like they were very upset about it. Obviously, anytime you lose a baby, it's going to be upsetting. But you got the feeling that they would have been totally okay with having a baby at that time. So I knew that they would probably have a baby.
But this baby is going to be their rainbow baby. So it's extra special at this point for Conrad and Nick.
Yeah.
So, especially after everything they've been through with dealing with COVID and their wedding got postponed and all this crap they had to deal with. And in the end, it's a good thing. But I have a feeling it's going to be a harder pregnancy. It's going to bring some drama for them.
Well, yeah. The resident likes to keep it real. And
Matt has hinted multiple times in multiple interviews that it's not going to be easy for them.
Yeah. So. Well, pregnancies aren't easy. I think that people have a lot of TV shows have a tendency to make them seem they're beautiful. You know, having a baby's beautiful. You grow a life, but they make them seem like they're this magical, wonderful. No, they are not a magical, wonderful lifetime. Your body goes through some awful, awful things. I know. I had a baby.
I wouldn't know. I've already had a hysterectomy at this point. Medically necessary hysterectomy that I had to have. But
yeah, I did not enjoy a single second. I know some people love being pregnant, but I didn't like it. I can't have any more, so. I'm done with it. But yeah, they're usually they're rough. Pregnancy is rough on your body, so I can imagine the resident, like I said, they like to keep it real. So I imagine you're right that they will portray it pretty realistically and pretty rough.
So it will be interesting to see them do it because like I've never seen a TV show cover how the character deals with the aftermath of a miscarriage the way the resident did, and how she'll have that in her mind, probably.
Absolutely.
So I'm interested to see how they're going to handle her mental health from that perspective.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. You're right. She'll probably have a hard time in the beginning with telling people with, fears, a lot of fear.
So, the main patient of the episode was a congresswoman who's running to be the governor of Georgia, Black congresswoman, married to a football player, and their marriage isn't really out of love anymore. It's not. Yeah, she's cheated on him already, so with her driver, and that's the big secret from the episode for them. Conrad had to figure out something's amiss, and she's not telling him because she doesn't want it out there. But doctor-patient confidentiality makes him not be able to reveal it anyway. So,
honestly, I didn't feel like it was that big of a secret. She kept it pretty good, but the driver was obvious. Like he was out of control, obvious.
Yeah, but it took them trying to do surgery for them to realize she had the same symptoms. So but Devin's like, you got to. I love the fact that the resident does this. They're like, you've got to tell your doctor the truth, or you can't get treated properly. I love the fact that they're trying to. It's a PSA in a way to the fans to say, tell your doctor the truth, because if they give you the wrong diagnosis, you're going to be in a world for hurt later.
Yeah, it could kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love that they do that. They send us subtle little messages, hey, do this.
So yeah, don't lie to your doctor. There you go.
Do it. It's not a good idea ever. Plus, they don't care. They honestly don't. You're hiding some big secret. They don't care. They just want to treat you, get you out of there and done with.
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever noticed, like your doctor, especially these days where they're 15 minutes to a patient, boom, in and out, in and out. You don't care.
Yeah.
So.
There's people like, oh, I don't want them to judge me. I don't want them to think. They honestly don't care about your lives unless that doctor delivered you and you're in a small town and everyone knows everyone and you've known them your entire life. Chances are, unless that's the case, they do not care what you're doing. You just tell them what's wrong, they'll fix it, and then you're good to go, and they'll never think about it again.
Pretty much. And Devin's dealing with a lot of grief, obviously. He's just come back from a memorial service for his father that was delayed because of COVID. He's seeing his father's ghost or whatever. Yeah. Yeah, he's and then he finally opens up to Conrad and he's like, this hospital was understaffed. That's why and it was in a poor area because they discussed the first episode and the second episode really showed the racial disparity that COVID hit.
Absolutely.
It hits the Black and brown community way harder. And the thing is, Atlanta, the city of Atlanta, where they film and obviously where the show is based, is a majority Black community.
Yeah.
And so it was hit really hard. Yeah. And so these stats, people are trying to say, oh, the stats are wrong, blah, blah, blah. Those stats were skewed because of the race dynamic of the city.
Yeah, they did touch on race a lot, even Asian, because of Kim and and talking about the trouble. That was last episode, but the 2 episodes kept it continuity.
They kept the continuity alive. Yeah. But Devin was talking about how, because his father and mother lived in Queens, New York.
Yeah.
New York was hit hard. And his father was a taxi driver, which is obviously probably where he picked up COVID from, and brought it home to his mother. His mother survived. His father doesn't. But the ratio of one nurse to 10 patients per in that hospital per what Chastain had, which was 2 nurses per
2,
every, yeah. So double the nurses. Come on.
Yeah. Insane. It's insane.
1 nurse for every 10 patients. I mean, they have 10 patients. That's insane. That doesn't even happen here. And I live in a very small town. Yeah. That's so overwhelming on the nurses too. I can't imagine. Like you said, like Devin said, looking through her note, his note, it was him, right? His notes, he started crying because there's nothing they can do. They're doing everything they can, and he lost. And he's a doctor. He's sitting here going, I'm a doctor. I've treated COVID patients. I've saved COVID patients, and he couldn't save his own father.
Yeah.
The man that put him through medical school, the man that got him to where he is, and he can't even save him.
Yeah, you're gonna make me cry. I know.
Devin's gonna be dealing with this. From what I know, he's gonna be dealing with this plot line for the rest of the season. So his mother is coming into the picture, I think. So
yeah, that'll probably be a pretty big storyline this season, is Devin's grief and how he gets through that.
Yeah. Kit. Kim. First off, before we go to Kit, Kim got fired.
Heck yeah.
They had this. They had this. Yeah. Yay! No more looking Kim. But they were. They had a panel where I think it was like Mina and Conrad and Kit and Cain. Obviously, is the only one that's going to stand up for him. But they were all like, he was horrible during the pandemic, and Conrad said the only good thing about him was that he got us the PPE.
Yeah.
And but they fired him, obviously, and I love the conversation because Conrad's like, getting fired will change you, I promise you.
Yeah. We'll see.
Remember, but like my father told me last time I got fired from a job, he said, if you've ever got fired from a job, that means you didn't need to have it in the first place.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
that's what my father always told me. So
yeah, I'm not sure it'll change him for the better. I mean, I hope.
But we won't
so.
know because we don't need him anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Because as we know, Kit's going to be replacing him.
Yeah.
Obviously, in this episode, she's trying to get the position. She's trying to vie for it. And they're like, no, we're not replacing him. No, we're not going to give a CEO to this hospital. Obviously, Red Rock wants to sell it off because they're in the red.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what we know is that Red Rock is going to sell it, and they're going to go to a public hospital, which will change things. The city of Atlanta will own Chastain, so it's a different ballgame.
Yeah, it'll add a lot of storylines, a lot of important storylines. I think it'll open up. So,
but Kit is at this point in this episode vying for that position, and I think it'll be a different storyline for her. You won't see her in the OR so much.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm interested to see what that'll do to her, because she's just so she's kind of she's a rock star. She's very I don't want to say she's not abrasive. She's just she's very outgoing. She's very, so I just seeing her.
But she has someone by her side that's done that job.
That's true. You're right. That is
Belle.
true. Yeah, you're right. That's true. I just don't see her as a CEO type. I just don't see that. But
I'm interested to see how they do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then speaking of Belle, he's sitting here trying to figure out, because the pandemic's obviously changed him. He's like, oh, a lot of my colleagues have passed away. I don't have anybody. What if I die?
Yeah.
The question everyone asks.
I'm gonna, for a very brief second, go back to the last episode when we see Belle for the first time in the middle of the COVID, and my first thought to myself was, "Ooh, he's a little old to be."
And they bring that up, that he's in his 60s. And they
say it like a couple lines later, because as soon as it showed up, I was like, "Oh, Belle, go home, please go home."
And Bruce himself is 64.
Yeah.
So it's I thought they were going to touch on that age disparity issue, but they didn't.
Yeah, but they didn't. No, maybe they will.
But like, Belle's sitting here going, "Why do I?" And then he realizes, like, he could have had a son if he just hadn't abandoned his first wife, and his little boy lost a dad.
Yeah.
Speaking as someone who has a step parent, like. And it's the step parent that, like, I have a stepmother, and I was raised by my father. Getting my stepmother at the time I got her changed my life. I learned how to be a woman. So for a little boy to have a dad going through that, he needed that, and Belle could have done that, but Belle realizes that now, way too late, obviously. But he tries to reconnect. Conrad Rucamora. Is the actor who plays his stepson. Camille was really happy when he was cast too, by the way, because he's of Asian descent, and
that sounds like Camille.
Yeah,
being excited.
And,
I was also raised by a step parent, so I completely understood that. I was raised by.
I could see his perspective. I could see, like, being abandoned by your step parent. I could see, like, that could be a difficult thing, because you remember it at 12.
Yeah. And he seemed to be still holding on to it. He was like, "No, I've moved on from you," and it was like, "You're holding on to a lot of anger to have moved on from it." So
there's Belle's trying to reconnect, and he's going to be back. Jake is his character's name, and Jake will be back. He's a plastic surgeon, so Belle didn't realize that his stepson had become a plastic surgeon.
Yeah.
So he's like, "Oh, he's a surgeon.
Why am I worried about his choices? I work at a hospital."
So anyway, and then that was the sneak peek that's on our Instagram is of that scene. The first time they come back together. That's the first sneak peek that the network released. Obviously, if you're listening to this before obviously it airs. You've obviously watched it. So, but again, that's really most of the episode. We covered every aspect of it. Next week's episode is called The Accidental Patient. It's a Cain episode. Cain gets injured in a car wreck, or not in a car wreck, at a car crash accident, and the rest of the team has to save his life, from what I know.
I don't think that'll make him more appreciative.
No, I don't think so either. That looks like to be the major plot line of that episode. And then 404 was because it just released for it. Moving on in Mother Hands, Devin's mother comes into the picture. She makes a visit to Devin. And Conrad and Nick try to figure out how to reveal their pregnancy.
Oh, exciting.
A lot of people were like, that's why I hinted, like, this might be a spoiler for people who haven't seen 402, because Conrad and Nick share their big news. If you've seen 402, you know exactly what news they're trying to share.
Yeah.
Which is why I said, that's why when I tried to be very vague when I post these press releases, because they're so spoilerish. Like, they reveal things.
I know.
Fox, watch it, dude. Watch it.
Yeah. They lay it all on the line there.
So yeah, pretty much we don't really know anything after that, but next week's episode looks to be a Cain thing, but I don't like the fact if they try to, it's too late for them to try to redeem him. Morris Chestnut's done a phenomenal job making us hate the character. So
I adore Morris Chestnut with all of my heart. I hate Cain just as much.
The love-hate relationship with the actor and the character. Yeah,
exactly. He's a phenomenal actor, but Cain is an awful person.
We have a Patreon account, so if we ever get another episode that releases early, like on Hulu or whatever, we'll probably release it early, record it early and release it early to the Patreon before we release it to everyone else who hasn't, like the international fans who tend to VPN it or something, whatever. So if you want to, if that happens again, the new one will be on Patreon for you to listen to. It's like $1 to get BTS stuff. We post like early peeks of like the cover arts and the stuff like that, interviews, stuff like that. So patreon.com/The Resident Podcast. And of course, you can listen to us on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and we have a YouTube channel. And then you can email us, theresidentRulebreakers@gmail.com. We have the Facebook page, which is the Resident Rulebreakers Podcast. And then, of course, the Facebook group, which we always mention, answer all the questions. Or one of the four of us will not let you in, promise you. I'd really try, and it's more people, I think it's because maybe they're listening to the podcast or something and I didn't get up. You have to answer the questions, but more people are doing it. So thank you very much, because it means more people are being able to be admitted.
And I'm a stickler for the questions, just so you all know. I'm a stickler.
Yes. We also have an Instagram @The Resident Podcast. We try to keep it up to date with all the sneak peeks, press releases, news, all that stuff. And then Camille's was @The Resident on Fox Fans. She does post things that don't go to the podcast Instagram. Sometimes she'll like post videos of clips of episodes. So, and a lot of the cast does follow that particular account. So, mine is @KBCountry37, and mine's way more personal. And you have an Instagram, right?
I do. It's @BFlagStanley. It's all personal stuff too. BFLAGGSTANLEY. So BFlagStanley.
There you go. And of course, we have our Twitter account @Resident Podcast, and we try to keep it up. But sometimes we retweet things, links to interviews and things that don't go on the other stuff. So there's that as well. So next week's episode will be discussing The Accidental Patient, the 403, and how much we hate Cain. And Camille will hopefully be back. She's been having some medical, not the scary way, but she's been a little bit dizzy. So that's why she opted out of this one. And Brittany gladly opted to step in for her. So thank you, Brittany.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
You're welcome. So until next week, I'm Kayla.
Brittany.
Bye, guys.
Bye.